how did you first hear about the coronavirus? Where, when, and what was your response?
Actually, I was following the news. So the very first time I actually pay attention to the news was when I was at work. I was reading that the coronavirus, like there were some cases here in the United States. And my first reaction is like, oh, it may be like a really, really bad cold or flu. So I was just talking with my peers that it's important to take care of your health and to, if you know that you're feeling sick, to stay home. And that maybe I already had it because I had some of the symptoms. But that was, I remember, the very, very, very first conversation that I had about a specific coronavirus.
When did you say that was, Monica?
At work, it was early March.
Oh, okay. That's quite recent.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yes.
I had first heard about it, actually. So I write for a paper, online publication called The Post Millennial, and I had heard about it in December. But my contact had actually lived in Wuhan. And so he said, there's all this commotion going on, and he had heard about it actually very early in November. And so I heard the news in December. Of course, I'm in media slightly in and out. So it was just basically through my friends, just like Monica, kind of learning slowly about, is this actually a legitimate thing? Do we have to be concerned? Is this going to affect the world, or is it going to be quite isolated? So it's basically through online communication that I heard about it, and it was in December.
Mine was similar. I am my other volunteer effort is a publishing editor for New Right Network, and it started hitting our conversations around mid-January, but really in February it hit, where early February, where we were all really focused on it and talking about it, and what it sounded like to us, I agree with what Monica was saying. The conversation was, this is a worse than a cold, but it's not going to be anywhere nearly as bad as the flu. And I mean, we shrugged our shoulders and said, well, let's focus on the flu, because that kills a whole lot of people every year and goes really unnoticed. And then soon after it really hit, and the gravity of just how bad it could be, really came to life.
So that was March, and that was December. And for you, Dave, when was that?
The first I heard about it was like mid-January.
Yes, as far as the news, I think for me, I can say, like, I heard about the news, but I really didn't pay attention to it. In fact, I think there were things on Facebook about like people that were eating like some soup that had some bad or why not. But I don't necessarily follow the news or the sensationalism of the news. So I kind of heard it, but brush it off until I remember March, because at work we start talking about it. So I was like, yeah. So
this is so interesting. It's a follow-up question. How, when you heard this, wherever you heard it from, how did you determine if it was, like Mattea said earlier, legit? Like, did you do like a Snopes? Do you even trust Snopes? Like, what did you do to confirm certain things?
Personally, I reached out to a couple of individuals I knew, like my friend who actually lived in China, speaks the language fluently. And I wanted to see what was actually happening on the ground, if people really were being, shut up in their doors being soldered so people couldn't leave their houses, what was actually going on, were people actually dying in the streets, what were the effects actually long term. And so I actually reached out to personal contacts, and they actually said that in some cases, yes, people are dying in the streets, but it's being determined as corona, but it's not corona. Other people were saying, you know what, this is just kind of a flu-like thing, kind of like what everybody else is saying. Don't be concerned about it. So it was a mixed message. And so when stuff started coming out in the news about it being so severe, I reached out to these people again, and they said, it's not that bad. So for me, it's all been mixed messages, even from people on the ground. So I am just I've kind of pulled back and have tried to be very discerning as to what I'm hearing and what kind of registers with me, and as well as what some authorities are saying on the issue.
Yeah, I think the important part is to use discernment. I think I like that word. And also to take everything with a grain of salt. In my case, we have hosted an exchange student before from Japan and another one from South Korea. So they're in Asia. Therefore, I remember like around February, like towards the end of February, our son from Japan, he told us, I'm not going to be able to travel to certain areas because they're not allowing us. And I was like, why? And so he mentioned it. And in my head, once again, everything was like Asia, far away. and and our daughter from South Korea was asking us if we were okay or how are things here. And at that point, things were normal here. So I heard what they were saying, but once again, in my head, it was like, it's far away, it's not here.
Yeah, I agree. I really get most of my news from several people on Twitter, where they do lots of research, and they'll have long threads that are substantiated by different solid firsthand research, and that's really where I look. If I hear anything, I just take 2 or 3 hours out of my day and I just dive into these Twitter threads, and then I go from there to do my own research and understanding. And the things that stood out to me with this, it was in Wuhan, and around China. Not the bat soup. I don't care about that. I think that was all a distraction. But
Yeah.
how they were using the drones to chase people back into their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, something about this is not adding up right. And so that's when it really hit me that, well, it may not be as bad as, whatever the Spanish flu or some, really, really devastating pandemic around the world, but this is probably something that we need to have our eyes open and focused on, and make sure we're doing good.